to the Beat Sound Podcast. Come on, Beat Sound Podcast.
Welcome to the B Sound Podcast. Today our guest is Cameron Leehey. And, we're just going to hop right into it. Hey, Cameron, how you doing?
Excellent. How's it going, Dan?
Pretty good. Thanks for being here.
That's cool. So random fun opportunities straight off of Facebook. It's fun to jump in like this.
Right. Yeah. I had a guest cancel at the last minute. And so I just thought I'd put the call out on Facebook and you answered. So thank you for answering the call.
This kind of came together in an interesting sort of weird way because we haven't put anything out officially yet. But I saw that you were asking about creative processes, and I mean we're deep into that, and it's on my mind heavily.
Yeah.
More than any kind of like promote a specific thing mentality.
Sure.
And I kind of remember you from Iowa City, I think from Yacht Club.
Yeah. I used to do open mic and stuff over there.
I think that was it. Yeah, playing some grunge stuff, if I remember right.
Oh yeah. Yep, that was me. I was the grunge guy. Iowa City's grunge guy. But let's tell the audience who are you and what do you do?
So yeah, I'm Cam Leehey. I'm one of the two members of the band POLYACHi. When we're going to do the performance aspect, I'll be bass vocal. Schuyler's the other one. He's my cousin. Is drum, vocal, and we're going to run guitars through the mains. But what we've been doing is for 10 years, since 2011 when we started this project, kind of figuring out what sort of style we want to do, figuring out how to record, and then just taking a lot of time experimenting and refining our sound to the point that we really liked it. And then now, since the pandemic, we've built a studio, and we are engaged in the do-it-yourself on every level of this, and teaching ourselves how to record, how to mix, how to master, how to make music videos, how to edit in Adobe, how to market, and we're getting ready to launch 2 EPs early in 22.
Wow, you guys are deep in it then.
Yeah, we things in our lives kind of shook out in unison in such a way that we both had this tremendous urge to engage in a creative output, and our sense of how we think music should be made, we've just always been on the same page with it. And our background musically has been us influencing each other over the years, because we've both been in a lot of bands over the years and shared music over the years. So we're coming at it from this kind of heavy metal, but like also prog and also pop and sort of little bits of everything that we're trying to cram in and make this really weird sound.
That sounds cool. So I'm curious though, like 10 years, is this your first 2 EPs in 10 years, or how does that work?
No, we've demoed. So we started with GarageBand, and at first he and I were a Hawkeye tailgate, just talking about music, and came up with the idea. I think my Aunt Gabby was, hey, you guys should, you play drums, you do this stuff, make a band. We're like, duh. Mm-hmm. So we got started on that in 2011, and it was just, let's just make stuff and see how it goes. We're in GarageBand and just trying like these sort of weird nu metal riffs with auto tunes. And then what if we put this kind of drums over it, and trying to find interesting combinations, or like mimicking song structures that we really liked. For example, we took a lot of cracks at March of the Pigs by 9 Inch Nails, where it's this elevating tension, and how it drops into that soft piano part.
Yeah.
With all the pigs are all lined up sort of thing.
Yeah.
And trying things with that structure, maybe like Captain Midnight by Tomahawk was something that we were really impressed by. Structurally, where it's a verse and this enormous hook, and this verse that trails off into nothing, and just seeing what's going to work. And we wound up making 4 basically albums that are demo quality, just the 2 of us. And then we made another one with a couple guitar players. So we've made 5 records worth of stuff. We just have never released it in any commercial sense, because we've been experimenting and seeing where we could take the sound and seeing where we want the sound to go.
I see.
But we've kind of run through like our bad ideas and figured out what works for us and figured out what our style is. And so we're putting the time in to pull it together and bring this into a more public setting. So it's kind of like we've been practicing being a band for the last decade. That's cool.
That gives you a lot of experience to fall back on there. So you said you have 2 EPs coming, right?
Yes.
And those are, so you've recorded these like professionally in your own studio. Tell me about the studio you built.
So the studio is based on using Pro Tools as our DAW. We've got just Scarlett interfaces, one of them that's 8 channels and then an extension that's 8 channels because we needed like 13 mics to record the drums.
Yeah. Wow. How many pieces is the drum kit?
So the drums are kick, snare, floor tom on each side, rack tom, and then we kind of get like a 3-3 split in this sort of symmetrical way where each side has, well, over here there's the crash, over here there's ride, but other than that we're mirroring different crashes, right? Did I say crash? Hi-hat, ride. Hi-hat,
okay,
ride.
Yeah.
And then each side has its own crash, each side has its own china, and each side has its own splash.
Okay.
So we wound up miking that with 4 different mics on the cymbals instead of just 2 overheads because it's a lot of cymbals. We had 1 mic on each of the shells, except for the kick and the snare. We mic'd the snare top and bottom, and we mic'd the kick internally and also with, I can't remember what the fuck it's called, but it's one of those, looks sort of like a little snare drum, but it's just like a big speaker mic, sub kick. That's what it is.
Okay.
Sub kick.
Yeah, the sub kick.
But the mics, we shelled out a little to get one of the SM7Bs to do vocal stuff with, so we used that on the hi-hats. And other than that, is pretty much the cheapest stuff we could find.
Yeah.
And treating the room just with the sort of egg-creating styrofoam stuff that you'd get off of, I think we just got it on Amazon or something, and just stapled it up and kept clapping in there until it sounded right.
Yeah. That's cool.
And just a lot of theory crafting. So we'd get on YouTube and just watch a lot of videos for how to record drums or how to record heavy metal drums and research it kind of in a circle where we pull together ideas from this content, this content, this content, this content, and figure out which aspects of it are probably going to apply best to the process we're trying to do. And then we just do it. And so far it's been working great.
Cool.
So far the theory crafting's been coming together.
Cool. And so I'm curious, with your drums, do you use samples? Because I know that's kind of...
Nope, no samples.
No samples?
No samples.
That's cool.
No samples. Schuyler's a very finesse-based player. I mean, especially his snare, because we're doing heavy metal, so it's a lot of rim shots and heavy hits that you're pretty accustomed to in the genre, but he has a lot of very jazzy snare fills and a lot of soft playing as well as a lot of heavy hits. So samples wouldn't work well for what we're doing because there's a dynamic range in how he's playing each part of the kit and how he's milking sound out of it.
Okay. I see. I mean, there are like some sample replacement programs that'll do dynamic range samples, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I would encourage, if you can do just straight up recording without samples, I would go for that, just because the character alone is going to be unique to you guys.
Right.
So,
well,
yeah.
And we also wanted to, we're using Pro Tools, and you're capable of doing so many things in Pro Tools. You can pitch correct the vocals with Melodyne, and you can go in and pocket everything. And what we wanted to do was make something that was living and breathing and human. So when we did our tempo mapping, for example, where we're setting the tempos part by part, he's the guy who understands that. He's the math guy. He would kind of figure it out when we demoed it, what the tempos ought to be. And we'd lay down a demo, and then we'd go in the room and we'd practice it, just the 2 of us. And once we started feeling comfortable with it, we just recorded on a cell phone what we're practicing and record a few videos. And then he'd go back through to the point where, okay, we're playing this at the same tempo. And then we go back in and tempo map from the tempo we actually play at in the room. And just operate from there.
Oh, right on. Yeah. And you play bass, right?
Yep, I play bass.
So how are you running that? Are you running a direct and a mic in the cab or something like that, or?
So for the guitar, I do that too, but I'm not going to perform it live. We mic the cab, and it's a valve amp. For the bass, it's direct in, and we're kind of creating a tonal contrast between the two, where the guitar sound is this really warm, organic tube amp sort of thing, and we're even running it through more stuff to make it sound kind of like it's on tape. Okay. Kind of like a Strymon Deco is the end of our signal chain to put some of that tape saturation on it
right
before we mic it. Mm-hmm. So the guitar has it as organic as we can capture it, and the bass is just my pedal rig running through the different connections, but it's a direct out from the back of a dark glass.
Okay.
So the bass is more digital, more industrial, and that's part of the contrast we wanted to create between the two instruments so that as they play in unison, they fill out more, but they also kind of fit together here and there like puzzle pieces and have their own character as we weave them together.
Right on. That sounds cool. So, and then you do vocals too, right?
Yep, I do, and Schuyler does as well.
Oh, okay. So how do you guys write the lyrics and stuff? Is that you guys take turns or whatever, or just
we work on it together? We work on it together. So we'll hang out together. We spend basically a whole weekend on this every time we do it, because he's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I'm in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So he'll come down here because it's where we have the gear set up, and he'll get in after work on a Friday evening kind of late. So, we'll make a couple drinks and just bullshit, talk about whatever with no agenda. But we wind up always getting into the music. And whatever we're working on, we wind up getting into, and we'll work on the lyrics together, and we'll make lyric tweaks together. And sometimes we'll send each other messages with chunks of lyrics or ideas of lyrics just to preserve them and kind of work through them the whole time. The two EPs, the first one is called, because it's kind of like a split theme, because we're writing songs about relationships. We wanted to make really sexually charged, like heavy stuff instead of, murder or whatever.
Sure.
Because like the Deftones have all these songs that are just sexy, right? And there's just not there's metal is so dry or murderous, and we just kind of wanted to, and we're both, going through weird relationship shit over the last few years.
Right.
So we kind of work on the lyric ideas. We've been working on those lyrics for the first EP, Every Little Bit Hurts. We probably started in 2017 or 2018 and gradually worked the concepts up. And songs have changed, like titles, a cajillion times, and lyrics have changed a lot because we're just workshopping it with each other over and over and over and over until we're happy with absolutely every aspect of it.
Wow, that's cool. Because I was wondering about that, because you had two EPs, and I thought where I was going with the asking about the lyrics was if it was like a theme of some kind where, so do you have to listen to like both records to kind of get the theme of it?
So it's going to be, I think the theme is transformation substantially, and almost every song in some way is about transformation. And the way it is ordered is progressive, but we're going to be releasing this music kind of the way that pop artists do and hip hop artists do right now, which is cycle on about 8 weeks, make a video, make a single, make the content that goes with it, and release one song at a time. So there's going to be 7 songs on Every Little Bit Hurts. And then we'll move on to the next one, which is called The Sickness Gets Worse, and go track by track until we're through that. And then by that point, we've started writing a record behind that. And we'll be recording it as we're releasing this and as we're doing the shows. So if we can stay on target, which we've been doing this for 10 years, so we probably will, there'll probably be hardly any gap, if any gap at all, between EP1, EP2, and then the record we're going to put out after that, song by song by song. So it should be a constant stream of releases for about 2.5, 3 years based on what we have done already, what we're finishing up, and what we're beginning now.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way to do it too, is the singles every couple, I would say like 6 to 8 weeks or so.
We were both really reluctant to do that and didn't, because we're also kind of prog guys. We love Tool and this stuff where even Kanye West, where Kanye West just put out Donda and it's almost 2 hours long.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun being able to just take that all in and have that overwhelming experience. And I'm going to listen to it again. I'm going to listen to it again. And that's how we originally conceived of releasing this. But as we're researching different concepts for marketing over and over and over and over, that just keeps coming up. And after a while, it's, all right, well, I mean, I'm trying to learn about this because other people know more than me and everyone keeps saying it. And I look at the heavy metal world and like the harder stuff, and that approach is rarely taken.
Mm-hmm.
And to us, that seemed like an opportunity to be early adapters within the heavy genre for this sort of release schedule and see whether it'll work.
That's cool.
Actually, I looked at some of your previous podcasts. I saw you had that Bacon dude on.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the people that I had seen as a content creator who was talking about music marketing.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool to see that interview with him as well. I was like, man, I see this guy on TikTok telling me to do shit that 70% of it I probably will.
Yeah, man, he's pretty good. I was just writing to him today about, who else he might recommend to be on the podcast. And he had a couple people for me. So hopefully those will be helpful interviews for people as well. But, oh man, I forgot what I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. So getting out ahead of the, being the early adopter, as you were saying, of this kind of single release thing, I just feel like that's it's just a good way to do it. I think because Tool and Kanye, they already have like huge fan bases, right?
Right.
So they can afford to put those out, and they're going to have ravaging fans come after them anyway.
Right.
And
right. As a member of both fan bases, I'm completely aware of the rabid nature of both fan bases.
Right. And I see. And then there's a band I like. I don't know if you've ever heard of Poppy. She's like she does metal now, kind of.
Yeah.
But I really liked her release strategy, which was that same release strategy, and it worked well for her. It made me rabid to get the next thing. I was like, oh, another 6 weeks, I'm going to get a new one. And,
right.
And what is it going to be? And how crazy is it going to be? So I really do think that's a way to go, especially if you're just trying to build a fan base. So
it takes a lot of the pressure off that too, to basically have this ready to go as well. I mean, where we're at is we need to lay down vocals and then engage in the mix, master, post-production stuff. But by the time we start putting out song one, we have the songs for the next 18 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Which gives us all that time to write this huge other block of stuff and also create the kind of content that you have to create to promote music anymore. Where, like Bacon, for example, talks about like tons and tons and tons of realistically, that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We have day jobs, we have other obligations, but there are things that we can commit to and create on a weekly basis to try and put things out. And it's nice to not have to split the time between we need to make this content and also we should be writing good music, right?
Yeah.
And not have to divide it that way, and just the music's ready to go. We spent a long, 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 long time and have been criticized as perfectionists by people close to us.
Sure.
But it's and now we can just kind of play with it and get in the sandbox with that stuff and explore the themes and take it at kind of more of a leisurely pace.
Cool. Yeah. So have you started the video content stuff?
A little bit. So
I visited Go ahead.
Yeah. I've just started learning Adobe Premiere, and I've made some stuff in Adobe Premiere just experimenting with shots. But Schuyler and I kind of conference, I guess, a few times a week, usually in the evenings we get off work or something like that around late evening, and just talk about what we're going to do for a couple hours. And we've started conceptualizing what some shots and aspects are going to be. We visited some places that we want to shoot at. I was near a sewage treatment plant over the weekend for work, and they had, I'm assuming it was a methane pipe that was blasting a flame out of it. And I was thinking, like, the first single we're going to put out is called Reusable Garbage. So I just pulled my phone out and took a shot of it. And that's how we're going to shoot it, is on the phones, because it's good enough. The phones are good enough, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we're kind of accumulating shots. Like, I've got a shot of a spider, wrapping up and eating an insect, and just sort of those brutal things that you see in nature here and there. A few years ago, I think it was 2018, actually, maybe, I saw Slipknot play in Des Moines. And they had this multimedia presentation behind them that Sean Crahan must have done. And it was just the wildest stuff that the contrast of images, some of it hit, some of it didn't. But the stuff that really got me was there was a praying mantis, a female praying mantis eating the head of a male praying mantis in the background as they're playing the chorus to Dead Memories. And that sort of bright contrast to the dark music, but also being on theme. Or even in the background of Spit It Out, when they're hitting a heavier part, there's a spiral galaxy, which it isn't necessarily the first thing I'd think, but in that moment, it really fits. So, yeah, I've been collecting images. He's been collecting images, taking little footage of this and that. And then a little bit down the road, sometimes it'll just kind of snap in our head. We should plug this in here. We should plug this in there.
Sure. It's pretty amazing when you start putting a video together, how well things can fit. It's almost like, I think of like the Pink Floyd Wizard of Oz thing. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, where you could almost put, any image and it can end up working in some way. And so that's kind of a unique, cool approach that you guys are taking. But let's see here. I had a few questions for you.
Yeah.
And cool. So let's start off with this one. So what put you on the path to creating music in the first place?
I started loving music when I was a kid. I kind of hated it. I remember my dad used to play music in the car, and it's just like, God, stop it. It's too loud. And then one day it just clicked, like, no, this is Metallica and you like it. This is, and my dad played a lot of cool music when I was a kid. So I was born in 86. So I was a kid for the grunge era. Yeah. And my dad got into that deep and all that cool stuff. So I'm a kid and I'm listening to Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, and Nirvana, and Nine Inch Nails, and Marilyn Manson, all kinds of shit a lot of people would have said and did say I shouldn't have been listening to. But, the stuff hits. Yeah. And it really gets you, especially kind of getting into that, becoming, not quite a teen, but that phase where you start wanting to explore and define yourself. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just wanted to play guitar. I wanted to play guitar. I wanted to play stuff like Metallica. I loved Metallica. I loved Smashing Pumpkins. I wanted to play stuff like Smashing Pumpkins. And Schuyler's dad, so my dad, Schuyler's dad, they're brothers. Okay. And my Uncle Paul, kind of like my dad, same way, really impressed by the music of that era and some of the heavier stuff in grunge. He listened to both of them, huge variety of stuff. But Schuyler grows up with the same stuff at the same time. And then we start kind of getting into junior high years, high school years, and I'm about 4 years older than him, so I'm flipping him stuff that is, Slipknot, that's just screaming obscenity on their self-title, and like Mudvayne when they were coming out early with LD50, and they still made good music, and that kind of stuff when the nu metal era was hitting in 2001. We just wanted to do it. We just wanted to do it. It just, playing music is. I mean, you got to do it to know, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean,
the feeling that you can get from playing music and creating music, and to have that kind of telepathic empathy and sympathy, where the sound of something, even without the words, conveys emotion to the point that you feel it, and then wanting to possess that power. Well, I'm going to use this thing to make people feel the way I do, Oh,
right on. Yeah. I kind of equate playing music to feeling like freedom. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you kind of disconnect from everything and you're just part of the music, and it feels very free.
Yes.
You agree with that? That's cool.
Yeah, it's that zone where you're not really thinking.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it.
Yeah.
And your body's just doing it. And you kind of, yeah.
I call that like
thinking, it's like almost meditative.
Yeah. I like to call it the state of flow, because it's like you get into this, mental state where you're just like, you're just doing it. You're not even you're just doing it because you're the music itself, kind of. But
like the conduit for it.
Yes, yeah, that's a good way to put it. The conduit. Anyway, back on the path of like your music career. Did you have any mentors along the way?
A bunch. So when I was younger, I went to high school in Iowa City, and I went to this place called United Action for Youth, UAY, which had a studio. It was like an old tape deck studio where if you were under 18, you could just set up sessions for a few hours and record. And at the time, there's this dude that worked there named Kylie, and I think he was in this punk band called Black Milk. But I couldn't sing. I was so bad at it. But I read this book about Kurt Cobain and about how he was so bad at it, but eventually figured his shit out. It's like, all right, I'm going to try.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just keep practicing. And Kylie is recording me just making this atrocious music by myself or with the band I was in high school. And we made some shit that was actually kind of good, but I didn't really figure out how to begin to sing until I was 17 or so and start putting it together. And yeah, so I learned a little bit about the studio stuff from him, and Ari from Dystrophy recorded a little bit at his setup at Interlight back in like 2003 or something.
Hey, I recorded back then too there.
Yeah. And Ari definitely dropped some good advice here and there when I talked to him. And there was kind of like the older bands in the scene, because I got into the scene and I was playing shows when I was still in high school, and these other bands, like everyone's the age I am now, they're like 30 or something. I'm going to be 35 soon, but like that kind of thing. So everybody was a mentor in that scene, and some of them good, some of them great. Like Paulie Wilson up in Cedar Rapids. He's got a band now called Bleed Black. But Paulie was always a huge advocate for like everybody, passionate, loves music, loves people doing it, loves people enjoying it.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I felt really lucky because like the whole music scene that I was getting into was at least 10 years older than me, and so many people were just happy to teach me how to do things and teach me how to approach things.
That's cool. That's one of the things I've always liked about the music community in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids. Like this whole area is like, it's very much artists supporting artists.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, that was one of the big draws for me here, actually, because I'm a transplant from Illinois. So
right on.
Yeah. So let's see here. So okay, in your recording process now, or just your whole process altogether, this whole thing we've been talking about, what was your biggest hurdle and how did you overcome it?
Biggest hurdle was doing live drums. Biggest hurdle was recording the acoustic kit. We had been using one E-kit a few years ago, but then Schuyler broke it because he plays hard sometimes. And he got another E-kit we were using, and you can kind of get the idea of the parts in terms of the sequencing of stuff, but all the finesse, it's just not there because it's almost just ones and zeros with kits like that, where it's hit or it's not hit, and there's not a lot in between.
Okay.
And it was really intimidating to go from we're recording in GarageBand and we are so bad at it that we don't even realize, like we're recording things at +6 dB and everything is clipping like crazy. and just going from, okay, this is a mess. This program isn't even any good. We are using it atrociously. We need to learn how to use Pro Tools. And we picked that because that's what most of the YouTube videos taught. There's the most information about it. And going from we totally suck at recording in every way we could to we want to make pro level sounding drums on this recording, and we have stimulus money to make this happen. And to do this research and figure out how to pull together different styles of recording drums to record this super weird kit that he has. And it's kind of immense. If you look at it, though, it's efficient and it's symmetrical and it's completely ergonomic. But there's a lot to it. There's a lot to it, and how to do it without bleed or clipping or any of this stuff. And we were both really afraid that we just wouldn't be able to get a good sound out of it. If it was going to be the room or something, or the mics we were going to use, like these 57s and stuff like that, just weren't going to be good enough, or our mic placement somehow was going to be terrible. But we spent enough time researching, we spent enough time coming up with a plan that we put it all together, we got it all in the room, and we started laying it down, and it just worked. And so that was the biggest challenge, was to figure out how to do that, especially because he and I both are big fans of Danny Carey, the way Danny Carey plays drums. And you hear these stories about Danny Carey flooding a room with helium to change the resonance in his toms. And
oh, wow.
And we're trying to, like, we're trying to compete on the highest level we can. We're trying to take on Tool, and we're trying to take on Danny Carey. And, we're joking like, all right, we can't afford to do that, so just wear a helium mask, and same difference,
Well, it doesn't quite change the room resonance, but
no.
It gets the idea, right?
No. But yeah. So that was it. Is we're worried that we wouldn't be able to get a drum tone that was good enough, and we're kind of thinking, we set our sights pretty low. Like, if the drums sound like the drums on Korn's self-titled record, fine.
That's
acceptable.
Yeah.
Because that's just super flat snare and all this stuff, and just that's a really big record. If we can do that well with stimulus money, fine.
Right.
But and I gotta recommend, because most of the technique for recording drums came from a YouTube channel called Frightbox. This dude named Bobby Torres goes through, and it comes from the point of view of, you don't have that much money to spend on equipment, you're not going to do a bunch of fancy shit, but we're making metal, so we can skip a lot of other steps, and we can attune our recording techniques directly to the heavy music we're making.
Sure.
And that was incredibly helpful, especially the idea of using multiple microphones as multiple cymbal mics instead of just doing like an off-axis, above the head kind of thing to capture all of it and get a better cymbal mix. And he just has a lot of really brilliant ideas for how to capture drums and how to EQ drums. So that was a lot of it, really. A lot of it came from him.
Yeah, it sounds like it's working for you too. I'm curious though. So with that mic setup you have, do you ever run into like phasing problems?
No, because they're all pointed straight down.
Okay.
The only ones that aren't pointed straight down, so all the cymbal ones are straight down, exact same angle. And because they're on the same plane, we don't get a phasing issue. The snare, we're miking the top and bottom of the snare, but we measured the angles, so they're coming in at the same angle, and then we just inverted phase on the bottom mic.
Right, yeah,
and then, all the tom ones are fine, they're in their own spot, and then the two kick ones are fine, they're in their own spot. And yeah, we didn't have phasing issues, it just worked.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's funny. So you did a bunch of research, and it was like, you did so well at your research that when you set up the mics, it just automatically worked.
Like, it just worked. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. That's great.
we set the gains, and he just played a little stuff so that we could kind of create a working mix of the drums. Like, holy shit, this is actually happening. This sounds awesome. This works.
So that being said, is there anything that you wish you knew when you first started out?
Not really. It's been fun learning.
Yeah.
It's been fun making mistakes. It's been fun doing stuff wrong. It's been fun trying this, just arbitrarily. Should we, nobody ever repeats a riff 7 times. Let's do that. And it never works. It sounds stupid every time. But we tried it a few times to be sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's fun making mistakes. It's fun asking the what ifs. It's fun figuring it out. And information is so readily available.
Right.
That you just can. I don't know.
Right on. Well, and sometimes to that effect, making mistakes can be good sometimes. Like, not, I mean, like sometimes you make a happy mistake, you know, like I think back to like a Kinks album where the speaker cone ripped and then they got this like gnarly distortion, right? And that's how distortion was born, you know? So there's things like that are, you know, godsend mistakes. There's
a lot of that. There's on the guitar. Like I'm a bass player. I'm a very physical bass player. I use a pick and if I possibly can, only use downstrokes. So when I go to play this finessey little instrument, I play it too hard and I've got to kind of back off, and I can do it, but I make a lot of mistakes when we record, and I've got to do like 3, 4, 5 takes on different parts, even if they're easy, because I play it too hard. And there's a lot of mistakes when we're, you know, double tracking in metal. You do guitar left, guitar right, and there's different incongruities. I didn't really practice any of this stuff. I can play bass and play guitar, pick up a guitar, do it. Yeah. So there were a variety of mistakes where I just accidentally played the wrong note in a riff, and it's correct on this side and it's incorrect on this side, but it comes together in this disjointed, unsettling way that is evocative of what we want it to be evocative of. Sure. And just these little things like that, where the guitar it's a mess, but it's just a delightful mess. Yeah, man. I love those kind of those dissonant tones with guitar, especially in the right places, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Just sometimes, you know, that sucks, do it again. Well, of course. Yeah. Yeah. The words every musician needs to hear more in the studio, that sucked, do it again. Yeah, right. So this is a cliche question, but where'd you come up with the name POLYACHi? So it evolved from originally, I was going to school at Iowa State, and I'd been removed from the music scene for a while, and I was kind of thinking like maybe I'll just quit doing all this stuff. My mom gave me a gift certificate for a tattoo, and I just decided I'm going to make a band. I'm going to call it POLYACHi. I'm going to do it by myself if I have to. At the time, it was spelled like this. I have it actually tattooed to me with an old spelling, like the Italian opera, but I got it from Watchmen, from Rorschach talking about the comedian. And maybe a year or two ago, Kane from Death Kill Overdrive was jamming with us for a while, and there was some joke about polyamory or something like that, and that he and I were having a laugh about, and I was like, fuck it, we should just call it POLYACHi, because I don't even remember the context of it, but then it just seemed like a good idea because it's its own word, and we were going to have this sort of trouble with, you know, when you look us up on Spotify, we're not there yet, but we don't want you to run into the Italian opera or whatever. And so it had to be a unique thing. I was thinking about the band Ginger. That's Jinjer. Right. That's this Eastern European thing. It's like, fuck it, metal does shit like that all the time. So despite having it tattooed in a completely different spelling, we just changed it. And what it's about, you know, it's a sad clown sort of motif. It also let us get away from the clown aspect of it too, to just change the spelling. But there's a lot of solemn mockery. There's a lot of dark humor in what we do. Sometimes the songs we make are bleak and completely humorless, and sometimes the songs we make are incredibly cheeky, and that's the tone of our stuff. It's kind of dancey, and we do a lot of simplistic, sort of carny sounding shit where all, you know, these notes are kind of close to each other, and just that vibe of, you know, the carny music where it sounds like it was written by someone who doesn't know how to write music. Okay. Because of its simplicity, and it's almost a scale, but it's kind of demented, and it just seemed to kind of fit the overall thing that was happening. That's funny, man. That's funny. The reason I think I'll enjoy this, because the band I'm in right now, we describe our music as feeling sick at the circus, and it's like, and it makes me want to hear what you guys are doing. So, do you have anything released right now? Is there anything anybody can hear? There is. It's not reflective of what we're up to under the old spelling, like the clown, like the Italian opera. the old stuff we did is up. So all the stuff we made in GarageBand, the 4 records we did like that really they're just bad demos, and then kind of a combination of that process we did with a couple guitar players a few years ago, like 2015 or something, and that was called Slightly Better Dreams. Okay. So that had acoustic drums recorded in the studio, but we did everything else in GarageBand. It's all kind of a mess.
I see.
And it's interesting, but it's experiments and it's stuff that had a target audience of exactly us. So yeah, people could check it out, but really the best way to get a vibe of what we're up to is we're putting little pieces of stuff up on socials and we're putting imagery up on socials. And
sure. Yeah. I checked out I'm sorry to interrupt, but I checked out your TikTok and was going through it, and it seems like you had like some drum bits and some bass bits.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like little teasers maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just small amounts. We have never engaged in really revising what we did with those first 5 things that we put out. We just kind of wrote a song. And if we made a mistake in the last one, we just tried to not make it in the next one. So there's no revision. And they just write the lyrics really fast and move on. It's just experimenting. And this stuff, we've been taking a lot of time. We've been revising a lot, and we've been holding it kind of closer to the chest because, a handful of people in our lives are aware of what we had made. And we feel that what we're coming with now isn't this experiment that we were doing. It's the result of the experiment. And kind of withholding most of I used to show people works in progress, and this time we're just not, because we're stepping from this level to a completely different one. And yeah, so if you listen to the old stuff, a lot of people found it interesting, but kind of like, Jesus, this is unlistenable. This is too weird or whatever. And I don't really blame them.
Sure. But so eventually though, people will see like, wow, that's a huge leap, a huge growth that they went through.
I hope so. I feel that way. But, maybe other people are like, you suck. And fuck it, whatever. I'm still going to do this shit. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
every time you make something, someone tries to make you feel like a piece of shit because you did it. So I don't really care.
Sure.
But in my opinion, we're stepping up a lot. And Schuyler wants to, I want to just be able to show the difference. We were here, we're moving up here, and not this kind of gradual thing, just so we can bring it out and kind of have a first impression. Even though we've been doing this for so long, because this is the first time we're doing it in a truly public way.
Right. So in a way, it's a fresh start.
Yeah. And all the other stuff was under the previous spelling. That's part of why we changed the name.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Because, having read that it was like you guys were together 10 years, I'm like, how could that possibly be? And, this is like their first thing. So it makes sense now. So we're getting close to the end of the time, but I want to ask, I asked this to all the guests, and everybody has a different answer. So is there anything I should have asked you today, but I did not?
I don't know. We talked about some kind of recording stuff, talked about some kind of gear stuff. I suppose the direction is we're really process-oriented right now because we're in the midst of doing this. If there was anything else you wanted to extract about some part of the process of teaching ourselves this, or the process of recording or learning marketing or whatever, because that's where we are right now, is this tons of learning and pulling shit together.
Okay. Well, I would like to know, like, how do you guys come up with your ideas?
Bad shit happens in life, and we try to turn it into something that can make us smile. And that's kind of what happens is, both of us have had, a long set of incredibly hard years, personally, individually. And I think people misunderstand heavy music that's really dark, that maybe they'll listen to something like Slipknot that's incredibly dark and creepy and over the top, and think like, does that make you want to murder people, or are you just like angry? Is this just angry white boy stuff? And that kind of music it makes me happy because it's cathartic. It's also just amazing. It sounds great. Yeah. And being able to take this kind of stuff, and I don't know how I would process trauma without this outlet. I don't know if I would survive without this outlet. I mean, I kind of have to do this to process trauma and continue to exist. And that's where it comes from, is taking these horrible things and trying to turn them into something that you can derive some joy from. And that's actually kind of what the song Reusable Garbage is about, in a certain way, and that's more of a kind of a meta moment of actually going through a breakup and in the midst of it thinking, oh fuck, I'm going to write a song about this. This is horrible.
Right.
And having that thought while you're also just at the bottom emotionally, and just kind of the weirdness of existing that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing that, by the way. That made me feel something myself, but well, because I can really relate to it. And I think that there's I was having this conversation with somebody today about emotions, right? And like what the things that with emotions, the thing about emotions really is like the deeper the scar, like the more likely you are to like change for the better because of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you
have to.
Yeah, because the alternative sucks, right? So you have to go the other way with it. And songwriting is such a great way to like to do that, to ignite that spark. So, thanks for being here, Cameron. Where can people find you online?
Instagram, POLYACHi, POLYACHI.
Okay.
.band. I think on TikTok we're POLYACHi.6669.
Okay.
And we're on Facebook as POLYACHi, spelled like that. POLYACHi band, maybe. If you find, we're on YouTube. If you find one of our socials, it'll link to all the other ones.
Right. And then I'll also put links in the things below here. So.
And in due course, we will start pumping things out on Spotify and making videos and other content to go on YouTube.
Do you have a release date?
Not currently, because we're not using a label, and we kind of intend to never use a label regardless of what happens.
Yeah.
So it's whenever we want. And given the pace of how we do stuff, we do it all weekend, every other weekend, basically. And on the pace of how we have been accomplishing things and what remains to be done, the estimate is maybe March.
Okay.
Maybe March, maybe a little sooner. We'll just kind of see how it shakes out, because we get, a weekend worth of work twice a month. And we've been moving about on schedule for a 2-year schedule that we laid out a while ago.
Right on. Yeah. And I mean, over the course of 10 years, it's like, you might as well get it right in the next couple months.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
We're very, very nearly there. There's no point in rushing it. Just the last little bit. Do it. Put in all the effort. Cut zero corners whatsoever, and just do it the right way every time.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And
thanks for the invite. Good talking with you, Dan.
Yeah, you too.